Daniel. So I am here in South Carolina.
Gang, thank you and support. Love you guys. We're here in South Carolina making the case to the people that are going to determine the nominee and the next person.
For those of you who are joining us at this early part of the meeting, my name is Bill Walker. I'm president of the Democratic Club here on Hilton Head in Bluffton, and I'm also first vice chair of the county party. And I want to thank you for being here. Our original intent was to not have a candidate come to this community without understanding where they're and who they're talking to. So this first part of the meeting is an informal gathering to educate our presidential candidate, Andrew Yang, on some of the issues. We have 3 people who are going to provide 5 to 6 minutes worth of input. And the first person we have is Carlton Dallas, who's going to provide a business overview on what this community involves, Hilton Head and Bluffton. And then we're going to have Alex Brown, who's a native islander, provide a background on the native islander community. And most of you from the community know we are very fortunate that we have some community stalwarts that are here, including Eric Escobar, who will give a brief update on what's going on with immigration in our community. So this is open to all of you, but the original intent is just to provide good background. And then after that, I'm sure more people will start to come to the meeting room. So I'll have and we have members of our steering committee that are here as well, our leadership team for the local Democratic Club. So having said that, we have our county chair, Myra Rivera. Will start. Myra, you introduce yourself, and then we'll go around the room, and then Carlton, you start. Okay.
Buenos días. Good
Buenos
morning.
días.
I know, I always say that. Everybody can. So either way, that's good. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to Mr. Yang and Jermaine to make this happen. We are really honored and thrilled having you here. I was telling to the guys, Yang that we heard you at the South Party convention, and immediately you finished, I went running to the booth and said, we need Mr. John. So we make that happen, and so we're here to having you here. It's gonna be a long day. He's gonna be stopping in every part of Beaufort, so you're gonna learn and you're gonna fall in love with us.
Right.
So thank you for being here, and thank you all for being here.
Right. So what we're going to do is, that those of you who don't know, the other people won't even introduce them, but I got to introduce Tom Barnwell and Emery Campbell. And the reason I'm doing that is because they are icons in the Native Islander community, and Hilton Head wouldn't exist if it wasn't for their forebears doing what they did to make this a viable place to develop. So having said that, Carlton, why don't we start out with a quick business overview, okay. And then Alex, you go next, and then Eric, you follow him.
Okay, you mind if I go through here?
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right, welcome and thank you for having us this morning. We passed out 3 sheets actually that sort of talk about the business caucus and what the intent is. One of the interesting things about the creation of the South Carolina Democratic Business Caucus is very few people associate the Democratic Party with the creation of business. We want to break that because having a business is one of the greatest ways to empower ourselves to have discretionary decision making in where we fund, who we fund, where our resources go. And we thought one of the most important things is to actually encourage the creation of businesses, all this technical skills and individual energy that people have. Let's use that to create business so that as we create wealth, we then can say which organizations we want to support. So we're not going out hand and, requesting a lot of support. Still we'll request it, but we want to be absolutely self-sufficient to the extent possible. So what I'll walk you through is the South Carolina Business Caucus and who we are, business owners, potential business owners, people in the community who actually go to businesses, who have a dream and an idea, you want to create a business. We want you to think that your political soul can be energized in the Democratic Party. You do not have to be a Republican to think that you're pro-business, because there are some real big pro-business Democrats. Tom Steyer is one. Ron Burkle, when I was in LA, he hosted a Democratic fundraiser at his Hollywood mansion. People who are not a lot heard of, but also Andrew Yang, who we have heard quite a bit. And that's part and parcel of the Democratic Party. So we cut across all socioeconomic demographics, and we want to have a voice with politicians about how to actually leverage businesses so that we have some discretion and we can actually mobilize the private sector as well. Now, we hold conference calls as a way of encouraging and informing people, but let's go to what we do. And you'll look at it, for those of you that have seen the sheet, the top 4 things. We want to identify, and there's one over here I think left, illuminate and support key issues that are important to the creation and success of the business community. And we want to mobilize and be able to take direct action, and we want to be a part and parcel of these types of gatherings, so that not only the socio issues are concerned, right? The issues of fairness, integrity, but we also want there to be a discussion about how all of you, if you desire to create a business, this is a party for you. We also want to lobby, and as one of the items that just has come up recently that we want to consider with the business caucus is domestic terrorism. A lot of information is showing that domestic terrorism has created more incidents than any of the foreign terrorists have ever been able to do against Americans. And that's House Rule Resolution 8 and Senate Bill 42. So we want to actually know and actually be able to create some energy from the business community behind that. The other thing is we want to work closely with chambers of commerce, which may or may not have been a potential partner or regular partner, but we service their members, and we help contribute to the wealth of those members, and we want to be a force that's recognized. So really talking about being action oriented. And we want to support Democratic candidates and help grow the Democratic Party. Now let me tell you what the goals are. The first one is to heighten the awareness of the Democratic Party as a home for people who have a business background. We're identified as being a big tent. Fantastic. That's great. We want to open that tent just a little bit in terms of people's perceptions, so they say, as a business owner, I feel comfortable there. There are Andrew Yangs, Ron Burke, Tom Steyer that are already there that I can talk and commiserate with, and there are people who actually attend businesses that I can talk to them. We believe that's critically important. The next one is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is projected to affect between 40 and 45% of the jobs that now exist in the United States of America.
That's your message.
That's the
No,
message.
really.
Yeah.
That's your message. I should bring you with me everywhere.
I'll go. Sign me up. Now, let's put that into real terms. There are roughly 160 million jobs in the U.S. right now. 40% of those is 64 million jobs. Will be consolidated, eliminated, automated. What as a country are we going to do? Somebody has to have the guts, the courage to talk about that. It's easy, right, for politicians to talk about emotive problems because we understand that. But we need a politicians like this gentleman here that are going to think forward and say, let me tell you what's coming down the pike and help us prepare for it. Artificial is absolutely critically important. One of the things we hope those politicians will talk about is a national labor policy. National employee redevelopment program. What are you going to do with all these Americans who don't have jobs that they've grown very comfortable with? Want to know what revolutions are triggered by? Unemployed workforce. That's the critical nature of what we're dealing with. So we want to pursue how are we going to consciously as a nation say we're going to redevelop people with whatever the future skills are. The third goal is to actually link the educational system with not only jobs training, which is important. The South Carolina Manufacturing Council tells us that over the next 10 to 15 years, 67% of the jobs in South Carolina will not require a bachelor's degree. They will require a technical degree, and TCL and those types of institutions are critically important. You know, going to college now, our kids come out with thousands, tens of thousands of dollars of debt, which is beginning to affect our economy. They can't buy cars, they can't buy homes, they're living at home, which adds a constraint on the growth of our economy. That's the type of conversations we need to have. So employee redevelopment is a critical goal of ours, and integrate the educational system to provide those skills that we need in the future. We need to help businesses understand that a high morale workforce is your greatest asset. As a business guy in the petroleum industry, we could build a $4 million station or $250 million refinery. Engineers from other petroleum companies could reverse engineer and understand everything we did. But if we had the right people and we were treating them properly, they could not replicate that. That is critically important. So what we're talking about, employee and wage surveys. So that we're knowing what's the inconvenience factor of someone driving all the way in, Carolyn, from Colleton County to work. So we want to make sure we're looking at those critical things that are the underbelly of our system. The next one is we have to reduce the cost of healthcare. That's a business issue. I lived and worked in South Africa, some of you know, and my medicines that I had to take there were 1/3 of the cost that they were in the United States of America. 1/3 the cost. Meaning, when I went back to work, I could buy it there. If it cost $30 here, I could buy it for $10 there. Same label, same form, same place to manufacture. So what has happened is, a lot of our politicians have actually leveraged our high income to subsidize their growth in market share in countries outside of the U.S. Mm-hmm. So we've been paying for certain programs that were actually able to grow market share for private enterprise. Nothing wrong with that. But Joe and Jane citizens are not, we're no longer in a position where we can actually subsidize the rest of the world. We gotta take care of our own. And then the last one, we want to reintroduce ethical behavior in business. We want there to be a moral center, a gyroscope, an ethical gyroscope as to how we treat. I was on the leadership team for an insurance company. That was a shock. Went into an executive meeting, it was part of my development. Went into an executive meeting, one of the first meetings I hear about this thing called due process. I'm like, that's a legal term. Why am I talking legal terms? What it meant in the insurance vernacular, you have someone's filed a case against the insurance company, you string it out. You string it out, you string it out. The cycle of life takes its course, then that person's estate deals with you. You settle for dollars, pennies on the dollar. So that's why we've created a business caucus, and we would love to have you a part of it going forward. Thank you, Mr. Yang, for being here. Second time seeing you, so I'm in Columbia a few months back. Thank you, Ms. Rivera, for having me. Thank you, Mr. Walker, for having me.
Okay, thank you.
Completely on board with everything you said.
Thank you.
And the piece that was missing, and you will get as you go through the day, is a clear understanding of where you are from a work standpoint. Currently today in Hilton Head and Bluffton, we have some, they aren't unique, but we have some interesting work-related issues. Now the next presenter, which will be a little shorter than my buddy Carlton, will be Alex Brown, who is a native islander, who's going to talk to you a little bit about this wonderful, beautiful piece of land that you're sitting on today, and how we all got here. Alex?
Yeah. Welcome, Mr. Yang, and Carlton told me I'd have about 5 to 7 minutes, and I am from the Gullah Geechee descent. There's a Gullah code one of the first commandments in that is that you respect your elders. I have two of them with me, so I'm going to yield some of my time to them, okay? And as Bill mentioned, this island that you sit on here, you will learn as you travel around that there are probably hundreds of stories of how people got here. I'm more interested in telling you mine today. My family was brought here over 7 generations ago, unwillingly, okay, as slaves. Because of potential individuals like yourself, laws were created so that African Americans could have freedom. That started here on Hilton Head, a place called Mitchellville. Before the Civil War was ended, freed slaves were able to operate as citizens. I think it's important for you to know that because down the eastern coastline from Georgia to Florida, it's the Gullah Geechee corridor. Very influential because many of African Americans in the United States can trace their ancestry back to that corridor, okay? So as you travel, I think it's important that you make that connection. Gentrification in the United States is huge, but probably more isolated and more intense right here on Hilton Head because it is a wonderful place to come. It's been named the #1 destination in the United States for the last 5 years, I guess. A lot of people don't know that the Gullah culture is here. It was thriving before and it's still thriving now. With that being said, like I said, I want to yield some of my time to the elders, Bill, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
I think Alex has covered it. We now at the stage where we are dependent on public policy to pretty much address our plight. This island is pretty much a microcosm of America. You have the big corporations, and then you have the workers. And the workers get pennies for labor. And I was very interested in Carlton's presentation because he pretty much presented the old model. You got the big guys and then you pay the little guy. We have not had an opportunity on this island to develop from the bottom up. Everything is still top down. But we had land here, and we still have some. We can't get it going. We can't develop business because of public policy in many cases, including the banks. And so when we came out of slavery, it was about self-sufficiency, getting away from that. We had worked for hundreds of years. We know how to work. We wanted to become self-sufficient, using the land, developing it. Now the hotel guys make the decisions. How big the airplanes come in, what they pay us. It shouldn't be. And so what Alex described, in terms of history, we have not realized what our forefathers had foreseen. We need your help with the banks, small loans, bottom-up economic development.
Trickle up.
Trickle up.
And protecting the land is remaining.
Very much. Protecting the land.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Tom?
Yeah, I too was sometime among those of us that are natives here. I'm only 84 years old, I'm the oldest of the elders.
You look great.
Let me personally give you the welcome to the couple of things I'd like to mention, and I did so as what was said by all before me, and again, publicly thank you for coming. I did too see you in Columbia. I was a representative as well as Bill and as well as Carlton to the state convention. And we're very happy that you continued your interest in this space, and we thank you very much for your national leadership, and we hope you the best. Now, coming back local, we are still, as was said earlier, suffering from some economic imbalances here, as well as historical imbalances. To be more specific, in terms of the economics, we did not have a rural health care system that was federally funded in this area prior to 1970. And by that, I'm being more specifically saying that I happen to be one of those that testified before the U.S. Senate Committee, February 14, 15, 1969, in Washington. That was the McGovern Committee on Nutrition and Human Needs. Okay? To put on record what then the late Senator Ernest F. Hollings discovered when he made his tour in 1969 to discover that there was still hunger in America, not only in America, in South Carolina, not only in South Carolina, but in his district, in his state, where he once served as governor. And as a result of that, fast forward, Carlton reminded me, sitting right here this morning, that he visited one of the many components of that healthcare, one of that healthcare center operation during the past couple of weeks, which is still providing healthcare. So healthcare is critical. Mitchellville was mentioned by Mr. Brown. Two things. One, as it relates to the history part, when you are elected, we certainly hope you will do all you can to help us.
I like that win.
Yeah, vision. Yeah. Just because I'm old, I still have vision. And I can still vote. Which is more important. Second, we would hope that you would not forget that Mitchellville is a place that we would hope will become a part of history in the books. And you can do something toward helping to make that happen when you're elected. So please don't forget us. And I'll be quiet.
We have one more presenter, well, talker, if you will, and it's important. And what we're trying to do is give you a little bit of flavor, for where we are.
I'm sure it's helpful to some people.
Oh yeah, for others in the room. The beauty of our community is that we're not unlike other communities, and the issues that are facing us with labor and they're everywhere, and the issues around immigration are so important. And we have a group called the Low Country Immigration Coalition, and that's headed by this gentleman here, Eric Esquivel, and he's going to give you a brief background on what's going on here topically, because if you want more information, your team's free to reach out to myself or Myra, and we'll provide you all the background information that you need. Eric, please take a few minutes.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for coming. Thank you to the committee and everybody here for being here. I'm just standing up so you guys can hear a little bit better. Gracias a todos, mucho gusto, buenos días. Buenos días. Anybody else Hispanic in the room? I asked this intentionally though, because welcome to a community that's in diapers when it comes to Hispanic emergence and cultural emergence, other than our native island brothers that I grew up with, all these guys. I'm the son to a Colombian father who came here on a Rockefeller scholarship to study medicine, and New Jersey mother. I'm blessed to speak redneck and Spanish. And moved to Hilton Head in '83, and we were the first Spanish-speaking family here. And Alex probably used to want to cheat off of us in Spanish class. Hispanics and minorities of other diversity backgrounds are new in South Carolina, when we are in the deep South, Andrew. And with that, I've had the experience of working with Dell Computers throughout the country doing Hispanic development, emergence, and marketing. And coming back here, I walked into a shock when I spoke about market share and business and Hispanics and diversity. You come from the Silicon Valley where diversity is key, it's valued, and my immigrants are starting businesses in Silicon Valley 10 times faster than anybody else. And so you know that value, I think. We have struggled here, especially Hispanics and other immigrants with immigration. From the top level down, nationally, I think I'll start with the climate. The atmosphere right now toward immigrants is horrible. It's scary. Immigrants are afraid. That's why I asked how many other Hispanics are in the room. Because we are not in the mainstream yet here in the Low Country. But I will tell you, we are the engine of this economy. And if anybody doesn't realize this economy wouldn't work without our Hispanic immigrants here, I think we're all fooling ourselves. With that said, the climate and the rhetoric is a huge impact. It affects people on the front lines that aren't understanding of the broken immigration system we have. I've seen since Ronald Reagan, we have not had any type of immigration fixed. We're in a 21st century global trade, NAFTA, all these other CAFTA, everything else, but we had no workforce program that came with it. And just with Hispanic immigrants, some of the statistics are amazing. The average age nationally is 28 years old. In the state of South Carolina, it's 26. The average household, 4.6 people. I always joke we're really romantic people. We are family oriented. We're very loyal. We're very generational. So I always say Hispanic immigrants, just like other immigrants, like your parents, are great people to come because we're all immigrants. And when immigrants come and give up everything for the American dream, that's the value of what's made America great. But somewhere along the line, our immigration system has broken. And we're in this case study almost that I see here in Beaufort County and in South Carolina, that the rhetoric nationally, the lack of action from our legislators. I've spent years hoping and praying and seeing proposals both by Republicans and Democrats, and I've seen no action that has fixed the economics. We have more people leaving our workforce, baby boomers, than we're birthing into it.
Yeah.
One of the things in one of your debates, I think it was a specific topic they asked you about, was high-end immigrants versus non-educated immigrants, and you spoke to the need of those high-end immigrants. And I do believe that. You know, as a country, we're educating the rest of the world's students. China pays for their kids to come to school in our country. And when these kids graduate in the STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, mathing, we're forcing these people to go back to their countries when half of these people would love to stay here and give us those values. And they're going to compete against us.
Yeah.
And we're not giving them any passport to citizenship. It's crazy, and you've seen this. And you know the revolving door with the visas. However, and you spoke to that. However, at the same time, you have young children, I have young children. I'm not raising those kids to do labor. I would tell them if they do labor, dig the best damn ditch you could ever dig. But Germany's very realistic to their first world. You got it. And we as a country also have to be very realistic that we're not filling the needs of workforce. People, A&E did a thing, come take our jobs, and it was for migrant farm pickers. And only like 8 people came out, and they only lasted 1 day. We are not filling the allotments. We don't have the allotments of visas of foreign workers. And we have such great neighbors to the south who are great neighbors. They're Christians, they're faith-based, they're family-based. And we have not changed our immigration system to be what the 21st century is calling and demanding. With that, we have people stuck in the shadows who are afraid, who are being preyed on. The atmosphere that our president has spoken about has created an atmosphere of a vigilanteism of, I'm going to get those people. We're seeing hate crimes rise. The bottom line is we as a country are dependent And economic study after economic study, the chief actuary of the IRS shows billions of dollars go unrequited each year by immigrants, where you commonly hear immigrants don't pay taxes. I say bull, because I see them pay taxes. I see them paying into our system. I have people all the time ask me, why don't they go get citizenship? And I tell them because they can't. We have different standards for Canadians versus Mexicans. And we are at a powder keg in this country when it comes to immigration. We definitely need high-end immigrants in those STEM areas, and we should be allowing those people to stay. But we also need our labor force. And the visa system isn't working. You know, we need a temporary worker program. I'm a realist. I don't encourage people to come here illegally, but I live in the reality of if we have people here and they're good people, let's get them educated. Let's get them in the system. Let's use our tax dollars to get these people into our system instead of spending millions of dollars going and rounding up poor workers in a chicken plant in Mississippi to...
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. We have over 11 million people who are here undocumented. You can't deport 11 million people.
No, and economically, they're having a positive impact on our community.
It would collapse regional economies. It would be a disaster.
I like to say I love to turn disbelievers and haters into lovers by showing them the money. And when I show them the money, it's so funny how quickly their customers become their employees. Then they become the godparents of the Latino. And they realize, I joke with them all the time in Hardyville and Ridgeland and in the interior where it's a little bit more southern and good old boy. And I always joke, they're just as redneck as you, they're just a little bit more tan. And we have this microcosm. Hardyville and Ridgeland, Jasper County, neighboring county, one of the poorest counties in South Carolina, 6th worst school district in our country, has been propped up and revitalized by Hispanics moving there. However, they have been persecuted. Lastly, I will finish on workforce. We are a microcosm, as you heard. Hilton Head is the #1 island to visit for years. Without Hispanics here, without a workforce, we can't do what we do. But we're putting immigration policy on small businesses with 5 people. We're forcing good business owners to employ people the way they don't want to do it. And we're not fixing it, and I like to say we should be embracing and using our resources to fix instead of to persecute and oppress.
I agree.
And I think that's the big point today that I'll end with. We need to get this done.
The Hilton Head, Bluffton, Low Country area is no different than the rest of the country. We've got a special set of problems here, or issues. Topically, we're not that unique. But what we'd like to do is to make sure that you walk out of here having a real good feel for the fact that we have issues around immigration. We have native island land that is being threatened. We have education issues. We have the need to have a comprehensive development of a business plan to make sure that our young kids in this community are being planned for the jobs that are going to be there in the future. The type of message that you and Democratic candidates have been delivering all around the country. So this attempt, for those who didn't know it, this was just an idea to educate him earlier. We're going to open up the general meeting, but before I do that, we're going to have people who are standing. If you need seats, there will be some seats up front, and there's better wall space up here for you. And you want to make some comments before? Yes, Eric.
I have one thing I left off, and I'll walk out of here and I'll die if I don't tell you this. And
Don't do that.
I apologize.
Do you have health insurance?
DACA. DACA. Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. I need you to understand South Carolina. I love South Carolina. Somebody once said, you seem like you're really down on South Carolina. I said, and I've even had Mark Sanford once say to me, you're Hispanic? And I said, I'm the new face of Hispanics. Sometimes they joke I'm the milkman's kid, but it's okay. DACA. We are one of only 2 states in the country with the DACA policy in our state that prohibits kids from, they have to pay it like they're foreigners in the state of South Carolina, even though it's taxation without representation. We don't allow them to apply for any of the in-state scholarships, the Hope, the Life, the Palmetto. Lastly, and here's the kicker, we're forcing Latinos, if you guys, I don't know if everybody knows this, in Latin countries, normally Latinos don't go away to college, they stay living at home and go to college. And that's what Latinos want to do here. We've done it with USCB is now the #1 enrolled Hispanic institution in the state. And those kids want to stay living here and work where kids like me that grew up here most leave. We do not offer licensure for kids who graduate with a degree. If you want to be a nurse in South Carolina and you're DACA, sorry, you have to leave our state. We have, yeah, no, everybody says, what? I've had our own state legislators tell me, what? These kids, when they graduate, we are being told by the administrators and the workforce deans, now you need to move to Florida if you want to be a barber, if you want to be a nurse. Nursing and medical is the highest demand for bilingual people in our country right now, and we do not allow. My point to all of this is the state, the county, the municipal immigration laws do not work. And we have to get fixed on the federal level, because we are keeping people trapped and we're forcing them out of great communities where inherently they would, well, they not only would like to stay, they would create success for our communities.